Jay, a question about the pace of play initiatives that you spoke about. Some of those ideas have been bandied about for years. I've spoken with Gary Young about them years ago. For them to go through now seems to indicate that there must be a lot of player buy-in. I wanted to know if that is indeed the case, and then if you could talk me through the mechanisms of how it passed through the players, or are there further hurdles? Does it have to pass the Player Advisory Council? What else has to happen before these become official policy?
Well, preceding this time today, we had a recent board meeting where this topic was on the agenda, and we laid out these recommendations, and they were fully supported by the board. And then just last week, we had a Player Advisory Council meeting where similarly they were fully supported by our Player Advisory Council. And Shane, I think what's important is when you go back to the commentary that you've heard around Fan Forward, and you just look at the commentary generally, we're listening to our fans and we're responding. And clearly this is something where they'd like to see improvement. And to my earlier comments about our players, I think you probably heard some of this from Justin and Colin earlier. I think there's a real commitment from players across the board to make certain that we're doing everything that we possibly can to improve. And these 3 steps are just a start. And for anybody that wants to learn more, I would encourage you to spend time, you mentioned Gary, with Gary Young, Tyler Dennis, Billy Schroeder, the team that is working on this every day and has been for some time. This is, it's easy to identify the problem. It's a little bit harder to find the solution just given the depth and breadth of everything that goes into pace of play, but we are committed to finding the right solutions and making progress on that front.
Jay, you just mentioned possibly assimilating certain aspects of Liv Golf into the tour product. What specific elements interest you from Liv, and is the team element of Liv one of the potential holdups of the negotiations?
Listen, I think I've shared our position today. I shared it in the past, and I think at this point I don't have any additional information to share beyond what I'm optimistic about. What I'm energized by specifically is the momentum that we have with our fans. And I would go back to 3 elements of the remarks that I made. I'd say, from point 1, we're committed to these negotiations and to doing everything that we can to drive to reunification for our fans. That said, we're not going to do anything that diminishes the strength of our platform or that momentum that we have with our fans and partners. And then, importantly, we're going to continue to take aggressive action with everything that we control to make certain that we're doing everything in our power to present and evolve the best version of our tour. And so that's how we're looking at the future, and that's really my focus.
You could pass down the line. In the meantime, Dan, over here.
So with the SSG investment, I think it's been over a year now, and I know what you've said in the past that it's not just about the capital, it's about the brains and the ideas in the room. How much of all this stuff, there's a lot going on, is being pushed by those new voices in the room, and can you shed any light on potentially what that capital is being used for or going to be used for?
Listen, you go back to where we were in January of last year, January 4th in particular, to be able to announce the investment that SSG was making in PGA Tour Enterprises, but most importantly, to be able to bring that level of experience and expertise onto our board, both within sport and beyond, was a huge step for us. It also was an opportunity to bring our players closer to the business by making them owners of their tour. And the way I would answer the question as it relates to capital and their general involvement is, a year in with 2 boards, we're operating as one. You've got representation from SSG across all the committees that we've structured that are looking forward, including how we're going to invest our capital. And I get this question a lot. We haven't invested any of that capital, but we've stood up an investment committee. I had a call yesterday. We're looking at opportunities, and I would summarize those opportunities as investments that we can make to enhance the PGA Tour for our fans, strengthen our tournaments, and then there are bigger opportunities that take time that we're currently looking at. But the tour's never been in this position. We're fortunate to be in this position. And it's not just the capital, it's the intellectual strength that we have that's representing our organization.
James? Sorry, go ahead.
Jay, as the commissioner of the tour, you make a couple annual press conferences, but as the governor of the PIF, Yasser does not. And as someone who has had numerous meetings with him that you call very real, can you help us understand what he seeks most in a potential investment?
Listen, no surprise to you, I'm 100% focused on the PGA Tour and focused on everything that I control. And I think that's a question for him to answer, not for me to answer. But like I said, we've committed ourselves to these negotiations. There's been a lot of discussions, meetings along the way, had the opportunity to understand and get to know Yasser, but I don't have anything further to add.
Up here with Mark.
Jay, when you talk about the essence of the tour, are you still, in your mind, the tour's mind, is reunification one tour? And how much of a hindrance is team golf and getting a deal done?
I think what our fans are telling us, Mark, is that they want to see the best players in the world playing together more often. And that's what really is the focus of the conversations. And I've shared all I'm going to share as it relates to where we are. But hopefully through my commentary, understand that our interest in and our fans understand our interest in doing so is very real. But our interest at the same time is very real in making certain that we're evolving, we're innovating, we're investing back in the experience that they expect of us and continuing to improve on that front.
Right here, Jay. As part of Fan Forward, you said that fans should expect more golf with less commercial interruptions. Do you have a reasonable timeline when fans might expect to notice that difference? And is there specific maybe numbers or data behind what we can expect to be reduced in those hours?
Yeah, listen, I think that as we've come into this year, we look very specifically at the number of golf shots that we're showing per hour, and we do that with our network partners, and we've made material improvements on that front. And listen, I think the work that I referenced earlier and that everybody saw and that we've received such positive commentary on last week with MasterCard and NBC Golf Channel sharing those player-caddy interactions, we're evolving in a way with our partners that has more golf shots per minute, fewer shorter putts, capturing the drama, doing all the things that we think that they want. But to me, there's no specific end goal or end game. It's something that we have to consistently look at and try and improve upon. And I would say that, and you know this as well as anyone, all of you, that the way that our fans are interacting with the tour is primarily through our broadcasts. But the amount of data and the amount of innovation that we're providing, I talked about the drone tracing technology. That's something we've patented. We have 7 patents. We've got 13 pending. There's a lot of the innovations that are going to be coming forward that we think are going to make a big difference on that front. And I think we hear that feedback from Fan Forward, and it's something that we're committed to trying to improve upon.
Go, Bob, and then James and Gabby, please.
Right here, Jay.
Hey, Bob.
2 separate topics, if I could. First, you mentioned again about trying to bring the best players back together. What's been the challenge with that? How much of the discussions is trying to figure out the best way to do that?
Bob, I stated our position on that. We're committed to these negotiations, and there'll be a day when we can specifically talk about the end result and how that's been addressed, hopefully. But right now, I've given you exactly what our focus areas are.
If I could just follow
Yeah.
on the pace of play that you mentioned, where you're going to release some data later. Will that include naming players who are fast and slow? or just is it just going to be numerical information?
I think, the conversation that we had with our board, the conversation we've had with our player directors, and again, I would ask all of you to follow up with the subject matter experts in this area, but looking at average stroke times, this is not, this is not done so from the standpoint of negativity. There's also a really positive element to this. There's celebrating the players that are playing, faster and improving, and at the same time, there's giving players, the information that they need to have to be able to improve in the eyes of not only how they're competing, but also in the eyes of our fans. And so I look at this as a very positive development, and I think it's pretty telling that when you've got 6 player directors that sit on our boards, and you've got 16 members of our player advisory council, that there's a lot of shaking of the heads, and there's an understanding that this is an area where we need to improve, and we're committed to doing so.
Over here.
Sorry.
Just to follow up on the commercial conversation. I know you've spoken about the tour's efforts to fit more inside the existing TV window, how much golf can be shown. But I'm wondering if the tour would consider changing its commercial format, specifically like as far as charging higher rates in order to show fewer commercials.
James, I think that as I said earlier, we're blessed to have the great media partners and network partners we have, and the broad commercial support that we receive. And commercial inventory is one element of the value that our partners generate through a partnership with the PGA Tour. Like I said to the earlier question, and you're sensing in all your dialogue with our conversations, and our fans are experiencing the momentums, we're going to do everything that we can to continue to continue to improve and to continue to evolve. But make no mistake about it, the commercial underpinning we receive and the ability for our partners to be able to express their brand and tell their stories is an important element of how we're able to present the very best tour in the world. The thing I would say to you is that when you talk to our partners, they're also reimagining how they market and build their brands. So you're seeing a change and a shift there, and we'll work with them to see if that's a change and a shift, or how that change and shift can help us continue to improve an already very strong presentation of our broadcasts.
So just to confirm, you don't see the issue of commercial load as being intractable?
Listen, as we look at our business, there are very few intractable positions when you're constantly trying to improve. So and the way I look at it is that when we're sitting here a year from now, I think you'll see a tour that continues to have a great story to tell about the way that we're responding in the interests of our fans, our partners, and our players.
I'm going to go the back left over here.
WJCT, haven't seen you in a while.
Yes, good to see you.
It's great to be back. How has the funding from Strategic Sports Group aided the tour's entrenchment in St. Johns County in Northeast Florida? And then secondly, the committees that you mentioned that were formed in terms of investing some of those SSG dollars, will they consider the tour's longstanding presence in this region as it reviews ways to invest?
I think one of the primary reasons that SSG invested in the PGA Tour is because of our presence in St. Johns County, because of this incredible venue, TPC Sawgrass, and the 2 facilities we have and the experience that we provide, and the impact that we have on this community. We have our flagship event here. We're all here today looking forward to the 4 days of competition and the 51st playing of the Players' Championship. So that is as solid can be. And, I think any investment that we're making as an organization ultimately has a huge impact on the presence that we have here in St. Johns County. And I would say, again, a lot of these changes take time. Like if you look at PGA Tour Studios, we just opened it on January 1st. We're world feeding this week to markets around the world, which showcase St. Johns County and Ponte Vedra Beach. And we are, you're going to continue to see more innovation and around this property and around this campus that's done in a way that, again, celebrates the area that we're blessed to be a part of and to be residents of, but at the same time continues to push the PGA Tour forward.
Over here. Liv Golf added a new CEO this year, Scott O'Neill. I'm wondering how has his presence been a factor in the momentum and the negotiations, and what has his level of engagement been in the conversation so far?
I would just say that, for me, I'm focused on our tour. I've been very clear about who the bulk of our interactions have been with. And, in terms of his level of engagement and his involvement, I think that's a question for Scott to answer. It takes all my time and energy to do everything I can to make sure we're doing all the things we need to do as an organization.
If elements of Liv Golf are potentially going to be added to the PGA Tour structure, I imagine the CEO of that league would have a say in maybe which elements are the most important or have been the most impactful. So how do you go about determining what gets added?
There are a lot of elements to these conversations, a lot of layers to these conversations, and again, we're in the midst of them, and I don't really have any specifics to add to that.
Come over here to Todd. And then
Jay right here. Hi. Of course, sadly, we lost Grayson Murray last year. Can you speak to the commitment? What is the tour committed to in regards to players who may be struggling with mental health issues like depression and anxiety right now?
Yeah, Todd, I would just, I think about Grayson a lot, and his impact continues to be felt. I think for those of us that were there at the Sony Open in Hawaii with his parents and with the establishment of his foundation, feel very inspired by him and by the establishment of that foundation and his family. And listen, Andy Levinson and our team continue to add resources and make certain that we're providing all the resources we can, for our players, so that, should they want to talk to someone, should they want to engage, that we as an organization are putting them in a position to do so. And I think the recent addition of Dr. Julie Amato to our team and seeing her so present at our tournaments has been one additional positive step that we've taken. But it's obviously it's a subject that we, something that we're constantly reassessing and making certain we're doing all we can.
over here with Mark.
Hey, Jay, over this way. Obviously, the fans' biggest gripe with the division, so to speak, between you guys and Liv are the best players playing together. I'm just curious if internally you guys have had discussions at all as this has gone on, because I think in the fans' view this is dragging on, to create a pathway for some of these players to play in some events prior to a full unification agreement coming.
Mark, I don't have any additional information to share beyond what I've already shared. I think it's very clear that the focus is our commitment to the negotiations. At the same time, our focus is to do everything we can to make the PGA Tour even stronger, to capitalize on the momentum that we have, to listen to our fans, and to do everything that we can in our control.
Let's come over here to Alex.
Jay, when you signed the framework agreement back a while ago, most of us assumed that meant that this was a fait accompli, something would get done. Since then, you're stronger, they're stronger, clearly. Is it possible in your mind that maybe a deal doesn't get done?
Alex, I think that when you're committed to something and you're committed to try and get to reunification and do so for our fans and for the game, I mean, that's all you can commit to a process, and that's exactly what we're doing. At the same time, you know, we're going to continue. We've demonstrably and objectively gotten stronger, and we're going to continue to get even stronger as we go forward. So I get the basis of the question, but that's our focus.
Right here to Gene, please.
Jay, did you ever imagine when this whole seeking of reunification started that it would go on this long? And secondly, what kind of, have you gotten much feedback from players about their own mindset of fatigue over this taking as long as it has?
Our players are excited about, when you talk to our players, they're excited about the strength of the tour, their involvement in in their leadership with the change and the evolution that we're in the midst of. Listen, competing at the Players' Championship this week, I think all the players are focused on is winning this great championship. And that was the case last week. And so I think the players understand that as an organization, we just have to focus on the things that we control. And we've got to be highly aware and highly adaptive to, you know, a dynamic marketplace, a dynamic expectation from our fans.
So if I may just follow up, Jay, to the question about, do you sense any sense of fatigue at all from the players about the length that this has taken?
I sense that our players are energized by the opportunities that they have on the PGA Tour. That's all I sense.
Let's do Doug and then Keith, please.
Two things, Jay. You talked a lot about momentum today. Where do you think it started? You can talk about the survey, and there's been a lot of emphasis on it, on the competitions and the broadcast. Was there a moment that you felt things turning?
Well, listen, last year when we were together, I talked very specifically about, you know, our commitment to our fans. And listen, as I said up front, I think there's no question that, you know, when you look at the fact that you've experienced disruption, what we've done and where I sense the momentum is that as we move forward in concert with our players, with our partners, and with our fans front and center, you know, the ability for us as an organization to, you know, adapt to change. So you go back to 2020, in June of 2020, when we established PGA Tour University. Like, that was a moment where I'd say, you know, this sport is all about meritocracy and earning your way. And the sport's getting younger and more athletic. And to be able to create a program that was going to allow for the exceptionalism at the collegiate level, now the global pathway level, to, you know, for talent to move forward, for talent regeneration, to the commitments that we made to open PGA Tour studios, recognizing the global nature of our membership and the global reach of our tour, and to be able to have the ability in a changing world to have as much control as you can have to storytell, to build our stars, to, you know, go back to 2019 when I was at the PNC Championship talking to Mike McCarley about this concept that was TGL, to, you know, the early days of, or pre-COVID, talking about Netflix in full swing. And that takes time to develop and to materialize. So much of the momentum that I feel today is the momentum that I know we're going to be talking about next year and 2 years and 3 years. But I would say that it all comes back to our players. And, you know, our players coming together to strengthen the tour and to do so in a way that put us in a position to move forward and to be able to focus on the things that we control. And that's something that we remind ourselves of every day, and that is at the essence of our momentum.
And secondly, the fans are telling you they want to see the best players play together more often. How much is more often? How many tournaments do you think that is? Can you get to that number without a deal? And if so, do you need a deal?
Listen, I share what our priorities are. I've shared what our position is. Look at the players in the field this week. Look at how they got here. Look at some of the ones that you won't be in this room, that will be in this room 3, 4, or 5 years, the next generation of stars. That's why this is the greatest tour in the world, and that's why our priorities are placed in the manner that I've said they are.
Right here.
Jay, it was 5 years ago this week that we lost a Players' Championship. What do you recall from particularly that Thursday when you went from trying to press through with this to maybe we can play without fans to we can't play?
Listen, I shared our priority. No, I'm just kidding. Listen,
I'm giving you
you know, what do I remember most? I mean, I just remember being up on the second floor of the clubhouse in a room for what seemed like eternity as the world was changing. And I remember Hideki's incredible round on Thursday. I remember having a lot of our partners and peers in the golf industry at my house on Wednesday night, and I put my phone down and turned it back on when everybody had left and realized that Disney and the NBA and, you know, there was significant, there were shutdowns and the world was changing. Listen, she's next to me. I'll never forget, there was a point on late in the day on Thursday where Laura wrote on a whiteboard, what would a reasonable person expect us to do? What would our fans expect us to do? And it was, we had talked about all the different scenarios. We were trying to understand as much as we could, but that was the moment where the right decision was made. And I also remember just the aftermath here of some of the things that, you know, we did in the community that I think were very positive, taking a negative situation and turning it into a positive, and that included Billy Horschel showing up at 7 a.m. the next morning to distribute food.
And I guess as well, as you were coming out of that, what characteristics, qualities of the PGA Tour may have stood out most to you as you went from shutting down to getting things going again 4, 5, 6 months down the line?
I'd say, you know, the impact that we have in the communities where we play, where we played for decades and decades, and the confidence that our community partners had in us to return the game in the right and responsible way, and to come into their market in the right and responsible way, and to do so in a manner where we inspired, you know, the world by being able to, you know, place live sports in front of them in early June, and to have our best, you know, have our players competing. I think that was it just showed the importance and the meaning and the exceptionalism of the tour. And, you know, there was significant dollars that were raised, you know, for the charities the thousands of charities that we support during that time frame. And there was some pretty darn good golf played throughout.
Okay, time for a couple more. Keith over here on the right.
Jay, over here. We have the second of 6 betcasts on ESPN Plus coming this week. Can you share with us what the response was like to the first one over in Phoenix? And then, as a quick follow-up, how does the tour plan to use that knowledge and wagering coverage going forward with TV broadcasts in order to enhance them?
I would say that you know, when you talk to our partners, the week one was, you know, was a success. You know, there's strong engagement. And when you, again, going back to Fan Forward and listening to our fans, you know, we've come to understand that, you know, that individuals that are betting on sports, not just on golf, are twice as likely to be engaged and to be watching sports. And so our whole focus, going back to the original days of our commitment, working with the NBA and Major League Baseball, was to make certain that we did in a right and responsible way in establishing our integrity programs. And so all that has led us to a place where, you know, you're just seeing us continue to try new ways to incorporate that and do so in a way that we think is productive to the overall viewership or fan experience. And listen, betting is I mean, I don't know about anybody else here, but when I was a young kid just going to the putting green, I mean, it's inherent in our sport. But what's most important for us is to make certain that we do so and we operate in a manner that protects the values of the game and the integrity of our organization. And I feel very, listen, I'm very pleased with the way that we've developed so far on that front.
John, and then if you could pass it up when you're done.
Yeah, Jay. Hi.
Hi, John.
Can I just say that the interest and anxiety and concern and whatever word you want to use to get this sorted out is not unique to this country or this continent. If I had £1 for every time at my golf club back home in England, people said to me, John, what is happening? I would be an awful lot richer than I am now. And the second question is, and that's not really a question, that's a stupid statement really, but sorry.
No, that's
the second part is, to what extent is the DP World Tour involved in the negotiation? They don't sit with you when you go in, but perhaps you could give us an idea of their involvement and how you report back to them. I know you're on the board, but that doesn't mean, as it might have done years ago, that you'd be flying across the Atlantic every month for the board meetings, or does it?
I'm on the phone.
Yeah.
I should share my phone with you. I'm on the phone with Guy Kinnings virtually every single day. Guy and Eric are here for the week. Guy and Eric were at our board meeting, participated in our board meeting just a few weeks ago. I will be in the UK at their board meeting on March 24th. Anything that I and we are doing as it relates to our negotiations or thinking about how we're going to continue to improve as an organization, they are aware of. And I and they themselves go out of their way to make certain that we're both, fully understanding each other as these conversations evolve. So, when you make a commitment like we did to each other when we formed our alliance, that's a commitment. And I feel very proud of the way that we've both together honored that commitment. And again, I can't understate the importance of the role that they're playing as our partners.
Over here, Jay.
You said in terms of a deal, you won't do anything that will diminish the strength of the PGA Tour platform or halt the momentum. I'm just curious, in your mind, what would that be? What would be the thing that would, diminish the platform or halt the momentum that you're speaking of in any way?
Listen, all I can speak to is, if you look at the PGA Tour today and the strength of our organization, the momentum that we have as an organization, and what we stand for. I mean, ultimately, if you're a player anywhere in the world, this is the platform that you want to get to. And these tournaments are 72-hole stroke play tournaments at historic, iconic venues with moments like we had last Sunday with Russell Henley and his family. That's who we are as an organization, and that's who we'll always be as an organization. And so that's at the center of the way that we think about, what our fans want and what our players want. And that's obviously a very important consideration in our discussions, which is why I've mentioned that today.
Okay, just a couple more. We'll start right here.
Jay, as you know, there's been a movement within a number of major corporations and educational institutions in the country right now to dissolve their diversity and inclusion programs. Could you speak to the commitment and the position of the PGA with respect to continuing the great work that you've done so far with regard to these issues?
Yeah, listen, I'd say, if you go back 26 years ago and you look at the commitment Commissioner Fincham made to the First Tee program and the everyday ongoing commitment that we have to, to serve the 150 chapters around the country, around the world, and to continue to provide both access to the game and to be able to teach young people life skills through the game itself. To me, that's one of the most successful youth development programs in the world, and we continue to invest our time and our resources. We just completed a $200+ million campaign to move First Tee forward. And as a global organization, as a global tour, having diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences in our building, continuing to add to the strength and continuing to be there representing our organization as we think about how we're going to continue to evolve, has been and will continue to be a very important part of this organization.
Two more here, please, and then we'll finish up.
Jay, you mentioned you're launching the World Feed this week. What's the vision for that, say 5 years from now, and how specific do you want to take that outside the United States?
So, listen, this week we're showing every player, every shot live, which is something that we can only do through PGA Tour studios. And listen, if you look at on a per capita basis, you look at the number of fans in Norway that love Viktor Hovland, you look at the following that Hideki has in Japan, you look at the players that are not on this tour today that are the stars of the future. World Feed in that studio gives us complete flexibility to be able to build our stars faster, to tell their stories faster, to have them engage with their fans in ways that we're not even imagining today. So I think it's a really important asset for us, and it's also an asset for us to be an even better partner to our media partners today, and that's what we're excited about.
We'll wrap it up here.
Adam?
Jay, you used the word urgency earlier in your statements.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give a sense, is there a next meeting scheduled at this point with Donald Trump and Yasser?
There is not a next meeting scheduled at this point. I think I said to you last week, with last week and this week, we have a lot on our plate.
Is there any deadline to make a deal? And if not, why not?
Well, I think it's just not that simple. When you're in the middle of these negotiations and they're as complex as they are, it's, the reason I say urgency is that that's what we're operating with, but there isn't a concrete deadline that's been established.
Could we be sitting here next year still talking about it?
Listen, I'm focused on doing everything I can, and I've shared you with what our priorities are, and I'm going to do everything I can within our control to be able to, to be able to make the progress that we need to make.
Thank you. Jay, any parting thoughts before we let you go? Thank you for your time.
No, thanks everyone for your time, and we're going to have an awesome Players Championship, and look forward to showcasing this event to the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.